Hey, how's everybody today? Um, since I was off last week, I re rejuvenated my batteries, and I decided I'd try something really daring today. So, ah, bar room from London, of all places. Pubs are absolutely fantastic, and I've painted many bar rooms. Been very fortunate. I don't do it real often because they generally take a lot of time. And that's why I was a little apprehensive about going ahead with this, but I figured, let's see if I can do it. It's more of a challenge. And I came up with a plan. And I think as everyone starts painting, you almost need a plan. My plan is based on the fact that I've only got 90 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all the darks. I'm going to unify the darks. So I don't have a lot of, I just have a smaller area, kind of this area right in here that really has painting in it. The rest of it is going to be quite simplified. It's a very analogous palette, so I haven't laid out a green in this case. I did lay out one cool, and it's an ultramarine blue, and it's simply because I need to temper down my asphalt. So I'm going to start quickly. I'm going to work with a combination of some transparents and some opaques because of time. So I'm going to start with darks. I'm going to start with a lot of darks. I have a plan of trying to get this laid in the first 20 minutes. So let's see what we can do here, okay? So first thing we're going to do is ultramarine and blue. We're just going to kind of hit this with a lot of terp. The reason I'm using a lot of terp in the beginning is because I can get the paint to move around faster. And it will hopefully set up quicker, which will allow me to go in on top of it. Although down in here, this is just basically dark. So we just want to get this in as quick as we can, get it kind of covered. So this is just basically ultramarine, and then we're going to unify it right into his jacket. A lot of what we call lost and found edges in this painting. More lost than found. So I'm using my little, probably should be using a bigger one, my little 1-inch gesso brush to get all these initial darks laid in. And if the brush strokes are going to show, I want them to have a little bit of character. So I am being somewhat concerned about them not looking too boring. We're going to continue the same dark right up into his jacket. And I'd rather lose, if I need to, hopefully I can find things later. So the more I can lose now, the easier it's going to be on me. That's the beginning of a shirt. I think that's about where it belongs. A lot of this sketch work is guesswork, as I've mentioned many times, because by the time you get into your painting, you get into your shapes, you can begin to see if your drawing is on or off. So I'm ripping through a lot of blue and a lot of brown. I actually may have to lay out a little bit more. I'm ripping through it so quickly. It's the back of the arm that if I look carefully into my reference, I can see it. But this is, part of this is a little bit of a exercise in painting mood. And with my interest always in painting figures, I couldn't resist something like this. I've never tried anything like this quickly, not even in a study form. So hopefully it's going to come out and look decent. And then if I want to, I can always put more time into it. But I always approach these as kind of oversized studies. Using energy in my strokes, which one of the things that someone was just recently asking me, as a matter of fact, it's someone who tunes in a lot on Fridays. I met him Tuesday night, Bill Nocci, and I met him Tuesday night at a demo that I did. And told him one of the things about doing these quick things is it really forces you not to go in and dwell on little tiny areas that you might normally go into. and get lost in and let time expire and probably end up overworking. So there's something to be said for practicing these quicker paintings. But if I'm going to do what I consider a gallery piece, because of the way that I work, which tends to be a little bit more refined, I tend to want to put more time into it. But who knows? I may end up doing more gallery work that has a lot more expressive quality, like this does, just because I find it fun. And after all, isn't that why we all paint? Fun. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like that because we get so darn frustrated. But truthfully, if you think about it, that's literally why everybody goes into this. It's kind of everybody starts with it being kind of recreational. Most painters don't pick up a paintbrush and say, all right, for the very first time, I'm going to be a painter. I don't think. I think most everybody starts with the idea of, oh, this looks like it could be fun. And they get into it, and all of a sudden they realize they really enjoy it. They're pretty good at it. And what the heck? Let's see what we can do with it. For me, that was the case. And I assume it is for most artists. Everybody gets into it. It's interesting. I find different people get into it. I got into art or drawing at a very young age, from what I'm told by my parents, my grandparents. Everybody said I was drawing at the age of 2. Stick figures, whatever, just making marks, because I guess I enjoyed it. And I kept it up. By the time I was in 2nd grade, I was actually drawing Disney characters. So obviously it was something I liked. And that's literally why most of us get into this. It's not for the sake of, well, I figure I want to be rich, so why not paint? That's not the smartest move. If that happens, it's certainly nice, but it's not what it's all about. But I know artists that are just wonderful marketers, and art has become an extremely lucrative livelihood. Unify, do subtle variations. My variations just literally are between ultramarine and the asphalt. And that's literally it. It's all I've used. It's all. But you can start to see the whole thing hopefully begin to take on a simple light and dark design, which is really what this painting is kind of about, even though for me it's about the mood, the atmosphere. Pubs in England, Ireland, Scotland, they're so incredible. I mean, I love to try and shoot photos in there, but I always feel like I'm interrupting someone's, so I try and be very discreet if I am going to shoot a photo. This kind of stuff's pretty hard to do plein air because, generally speaking, most bars aren't going to let you set up an easel indoors. Actually, never tried, never asked. Maybe it's my mistake. Keep an eye on the time. So this is going to be probably a little more expressive than some of the other things I do. And maybe it'll actually look good. It's one of these things you never know. I don't. I added a little bit of red for the first time. It's a hand. That's why. And a little darker. Still kept it very dark, if you notice. So it's almost part of the background. It's not distinguishing itself as a separate color. Okay, now let's start to block in some of these a little bit more. This is the advantage of this brush, or even if I use one of my large rosemaries, it doesn't matter, is simply that you won't overpick an area. You can't with a brush at this scale. And because of that, let's kind of carve in kind of around his face. Don't know if it's going to be right or wrong. Down around here, around the front of his face, back up here. Well, I kind of like some of the transparent strokes that I'm starting to get in here. It's really kind of interesting. Let's lose the handle. These are handles. Took me a little bit to figure it out when I was sketching it up. Some of that red is sneaking its way out, so I'm throwing more blue in to counteract it. If I find the color becomes too dominant, I will do that. We're going to lose part of this into his face too. And let's see, we've got a little bit of a beard. Let's just kind of paint yourself into the corner and figure your way out. Lose things, then go back and find them. Another way of stating the same thing. Lose information, then go back and find it. If you draw really super tight and refined, chances are you won't do this, because you've invested so much time and energy into that drawing that you are so apprehensive about losing it. So by actually not doing a really, really strong drawing, I may have helped myself, hopefully. Check up in here, down around where all the activity. Now, I've used that phrase a lot, this word activity, when I paint, and I think that way. Whether it's active pattern on clothing, anything, there's activity versus simplicity. And in this case, here's the activity. All this stuff is the simplicity. If I want to, I could leave the drips or I can wipe them out. It's up. Part of it is time, part of it is your overall intent when you start your painting. How much do I really want to have a lot of that stuff? Let's see, got this great. Right down, trying to figure this out now. I didn't draw that in. It's down about here, I suppose, because there is another, yeah. Yeah, we got a little bit of a areas between these are the things that distinguish. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of raw sienna. So I add a little bit of burnt sienna, a little raw sienna, a little burnt sienna into the color I've already got mixed. And it's because I see, as it comes down here, I see it warm up. Probably, okay, down around his face. So I'm setting up the environment, much the same as when I paint a landscape or something. I'm setting up the environment so that most of that I can leave understated and just concentrate on the areas of what one might consider important, which in this case is the activity of the figure, the two figures, the interaction of the two figures, and some of the information around the bar itself. I just feel paint over too much, if anything. So you don't have to go back and fill in later. And that way, if it ends up as kind of a stroke, it'll end up as a stroke. It won't end up as a bad version of a bottle or something. It's a lot of lettering. I'm pretty darn sure I'm not going to do lettering. I might do some scribbles if I have time, but pretty darn sure the lettering's not going to be there. If I have any question, I would just as soon paint it dark. If I have any question about what I'm doing, just because I can always go in and chip away at it if I need to. Still dealing primarily with the blue and the brown. Dark behind the bottles. See if I can kind of hit the negatives. So I kind of leave approximately where I want those bottles. I'm not going to have time to go into, like I usually love to go into, kind of just with some nice juicy thick paint, indicate the feeling of the bottles. Probably not going to have time for that. I'm aware of that. So the whole thing is beginning to shape up. Kind of, this is a little too light here. So I'm just going to smudge a little over it like that. Let's check over in here, make sure I've got the darks that I want in here. Probably don't have all the darks that I need. Probably in here, down. I made a mistake. This is right here. I see it. I put it there. But that's okay. It was dark back there anyway, so it's not going to hurt it. A little bit of raw sienna, right in here. Now I'm going to come in with a few mid-tones. I think we've got a little bit of a lay, and I don't worry about that because I can put that in at the last minute. I'm not going to worry about that. I am going to worry about a lot of this. So we're going to put a little bit of that stuff in right now. A lot of mid-tones. Start with an ochre. Very analogous. This whole thing is very warm to ochre, to raw sienna in that arena. So we've got a bright right here. I won't call them all out, but let's put it in there. And then let's bring a little bit more red into that because it looks a little bit too yellow. And come down right there. Leave that alone. A little bit of beautiful warm carving back. That's too light. So I just mixed in more brown. There's a light back in there. And then it darkens to here. And to darken, I just threw more of that brown in. So we're kind of indicating some of those color movements that are beginning to happen in these areas. Down at the bottom of the bottle. Let's go over into here and well, I've got some of these colors, these amber kind of colors mixed up, these warms. Might as well start to get some of these areas thrown in. Those are all going to be labels, hopefully. It's a nice warm area right back here. And then we'll let it get lost in shadow. It's probably a little too light, so we just took a little bit of the brown. We could just come right down over it, soften it down a little bit. Up in the premium whiskey sign right there, we got a little bit of an amber. Well, I've got this amber color mixed up. I'm trying to move it around rather than go back later and go, well, it was the same color and I could have used it, but I didn't. So if you can get them in right at the beginning, you're better off. Okay. In here, there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of behind this guy. So just kind of put some strokes in there. Let's go down into that glass has got a lot of warmth. So a little bit of burnt sienna into that color I was using, right about here, which is here, right about in here. We're going to put that color in. That worked pretty well. His hand, I got a little bit in there. Now, let's go to this. I've used ochre and a little bit of a cad red hue. And I think I want to go right here with it. And a little bit more of an ochre. So cooled it down just a little bit, throw a little blue into it to cool it, and a little yellow. So it isn't quite the same red. We're going to go right about here. Okay, and then we'll go down from below. There's a lot of activity going on. So you want to just chisel it in there. Simplify in the beginning, complex later on, if you got the time. If you don't have the time, keep it simple. Back to the blue and the brown, because I need some more darks. So I know it's a pretty easy combination to come up with. And there's a white. White comes down. Top of that glass, that's that. Okay, got it. It's really easy to lose your place. You probably know that. I'm not probably telling you anything you don't know. And when you do complex, but it is in landscapes too. In fact, I sometimes have a harder time in landscapes. I can lose my place. You've got to find elements that you can use as anchor points. And those anchor points allow you. So we've got, I got pretty much a lot of this activity going on pretty well. There are areas that definitely need to be somewhat refined. We're going to get some nice color up in here. Top of the bottle, a little darker right up in here. Probably a little too dark, a little darker right here, down in here. I'd rather have to paint lights back onto it than anything. So we're going to do a little bit of that. Get a little bit of an amber color with almost a greenish cast. So a little bit of blue and ochre. So my eye's darting around quite a bit. I hope you guys are aware of that. And that's right up about in there. We'll get the color kind of correct. So I say kind of. That's all you can hope for. Kind of like that color. It's working okay. And here I should mention also something I didn't, and that is what color is the canvas? The canvas, you look at my flesh tone, is pretty darn close to my flesh tone, isn't it? So it's a blue, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red, to kind of come up with that flesh tone quality. And I just figured I wanted a more neutral. And so that was my plan. There's a little bit of a blue quality right in there. There's not many little areas that have that kind of bluish cast to it. And the bluish cast is pretty dark. So it's right about, let's see if this works. Under his nose, right about here. That's a little lighter than I want. So I'm just adding a little blue and brown to that same color. We'll do it again. Yeah. Now I see a little blue cast. If I can see him elsewhere, I will do it. I see it in here. I see it in this one right here. And I see it get darker, a darker version of that same color. Right, come on, here. And almost a blacker version. So I just throw a little bit more brown back into it. And that's going to go right about here. Down below it, let's make sure. Right down below it, right there. Like I said, I'd rather have too many darks and have to work my way out of them than to have everything where I have to kind of keep going back and filling in more darks. So let's start to get some of the bottles working a little bit here without over laboring and drawing. Important shapes, important. Top of the bottle, right here. Where else do I see darks? I see little dark accents, little smacks down in there. Top of the bottle. Definitely top of the bottle. A little bit of warmth thrown into it. Not too much warm. Do it again. Top of the bottle here. And let's carve around them a little bit more. We'll put the caps on them. Lighter one, right? Just taking basically ochre. We're going to put it right here. I'm going to put a little bit of ochre right there. Let's look over in here. Right, what do I need to do here? So I'm not going to have time, as I mentioned to you, but I'm not going to have time to go in and fuss those bottles up the way I would normally like to if I were doing a typical barroom scene. So I'm building up to the lights. And I think that's obvious, but in case you haven't realized it, that's what I'm thinking, as I'm building up towards those brighter lights. Little piece of bottle there, another piece over in here. All right, I see some things, some other darks that I need to kind of fix. Maybe get darker here, here, here. Okay, let's start to get a little bit of these characters in here. Not a lot, but a little. Start to develop them a little bit, so if I don't have time, I'll get enough of them in there where if I need to, I can go back. So let's get the rest of that jacket in. Don't know why I didn't put that in right in the beginning. Now I see a little bit of light on the top of the jacket, on the top of that sleeve, which is right about here. And right about here. Just a little bit. And slightly warmer, but a little bit as we move up into that region. That region comes down, fades away. Warmer as it goes up on there's a hood to that jacket. This was winter, by the way. I didn't mention the time of year. We took a trip back there in January, and so it was pretty cold out. It wasn't freezing, but it was cold, so people were bundled.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe 4 years. I don't know.
Probably like 6.
Put too much in, guess. If you guess wrong, fix it. It's really what it comes down to. So always go back with the blue and the brown and emphasize any of those folds that you might see that you kind of maybe wiped out too much. You're just indicating the feeling of it anyway. You just don't have the time to really dwell and make it refined. So this is good. Like I said, this painting is going to be a little more expressive, hopefully, than some of the others. And that's all due to time, and it's due to intent. I mean, when I started this painting, my intent was to keep it very loose and have a lot of expression in it and not have it be a rendered type of painting that you might do. So we're indicating areas. There's an area back there. That's why I'm using this brush. I'm using this brush because I can indicate things quicker. I am going to switch down, however. Switch down to this is rosemary, about a number 8 flat. And I'm going to go in, start to get the flesh tones, which are kind of muted. So a little umber, or a little bit of a burnt sienna thrown in, touch of blue, touch of ochre. No white yet, so I'm going to test it. That looks actually pretty good. I need a little bit more medium in it. Let's see where we're at time-wise here. So I am almost 30 minutes into it. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't know if I'm happy with that or not. But I don't have time to sit and worry about it. See, I did a big mistake. So I have this big brush, blue and brown, handy. So I can go in, fix things if I need to. So now let's see what we can do with that back of that ear. It's a little bit of what we call a control type of a stroke. That's his jawline. Front of the forehead. I'm going to mix it right into that brown because I don't want it as light as, same with the front side of the eye socket, front of the cheek. Comes down to where the lip is. We lose that back into shadow. Need to come back with dark right in there. We can always come back with that beard over it. hit the side of the wing of the nostril, which is quite dark. The underplane, which is dark. I kept the light. I was hanging on to too many lights for the sake of my drawing. I know I was. I didn't want to lose my drawing. It's a natural tendency. I have it just like everyone else. You say, well, I don't want to lose the drawing, so but you got to lose enough. Otherwise, it's going to look like I painted around things.
Something happened with the image.
Huh?
You lost image or something.
Image is on or not?
There it is.
Huh?
Yeah, now it is.
Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of light on the front of the nose, a little lighter, probably a little too light, but let's give it a shot, okay? Oh, I don't mind that. A little more ochre into it will hit the front of the forehead. Pulls back a little bit. Tip of the nose, I left it alone. And once again, I should not have. Shame on me, but I did. So we go back to blue and brown, carve it back down. Okay, so we have the tip, and that's just the color of the canvas. This is where I had too much light color in that brush. I shouldn't have done that. I should have just taken this brush. And just, there we go. Okay, what's happening is not bad. Light on the tip of the nose. Let's take a brush and a little bit of Naples into my light colors, because it tends to be a pretty bright, right about there. Too bright. That feels better. A little bit, I can take a little bit of that color, put it right about there on the tip of the forehead. Okay, so we're starting to get a little bit of illumination on that character. Top of his hair. I can bring a warm, I see it come this way, go up, a little bit more light in it, move back, and we start to get a little bit tonality. Now we get a little bit more on the front of his cheek. Don't want to dwell too long on this guy. And this is the kind of thing that it's really easy to get into this thing and just stay on it, stay on it, stay on it, rather than keep moving. Okay, that's all I'm going to do now, because not that I don't want to do more, but I know if I do, I probably will not get this whole piece taken care of. So, and I do want to. I'd like this whole thing to feel complete and painterly at the very end, if nothing else. So a little bit of a rim light on his collar. I'm going to bring his upper lip out by adding a dark right there, and his lower lip right there. So it looks like his mouth is slightly open. Maybe he's talking. We'll go back behind him. I'm going to take Naples and white and some medium. A lot of Naples. Maybe a little ochre into that too. There, let's try this. It's pretty bright. Activity. Paint the activity, don't paint the detail. Buzzes. Chisel strokes work really well for this, by the way. It's nice chiseled. More ochre, just to vary the color. I don't want it to stay as the same color over and over and over. So I might even mix a little blue and white, and we'll come back right about, let's see a little definition, little right there, little dings, corner of the brush. Use the different facets of your paintbrush. Don't always stay with that tried and true exacting tip. So we're just gonna leave it alone right now. I don't want to, I'd like to do more, but I don't want to, because I know if I do, I'm going to, not gonna get the rest done. A little more white into that color, and let's get this strong, bright light right here. Down below it, there's a little bit of a dark. This looks like it's the back of his jacket there, which I think it is. So I'm going to take raw sienna, mix it into the colors that I've got. Maybe lighten it just a touch. Yeah, it feels about right. Maybe a little too light. So I throw a little bit of other color into it. So, okay, we're gonna leave that alone. He's starting to work pretty good. This is way too light right here. I can see it. Just take my blue and brown, kind of knock it back a little bit so that it doesn't stand out so much. Front of his shirt could probably use a little bit more light. Within the shadow of the shirt, you could add a few subtler darks, so it's not just a, there we go. So that's working okay. Keep moving. Got to move around the whole darn thing. So we're going to work our way down, more activity. Anything down in here, over, oh, ochre. Not enough ochre, but so I threw some brown into it, just went over it again. A little down below it. But like I said, chisel strokes, this little number 8 rosemary really works well for this kind of stuff. You don't want to try and over render any of those. Now, front of his shirt, Naples, a little bit of warm light. So we got through some ochre into it. So we're going to go here, let it dissipate, come back, hit your bright, come back, hit another bright, a little bit right there, work your way down the belly. Mix in so it's not as light. There we go. I like, actually, that worked really well. Okay, let's keep moving. A little bit of light on his pants. Kind of a cooler light, probably jeans or something. So maybe we'll just do kind of something like that and add a little bit of sparkle to it. A little bit of, okay, leave it alone. So he's almost done as far as this style, this direction goes. One of the things that's really cool, the light, I love it when light spills over. By that, I mean, light kind of obliterates down in here. So it gets kind of warm and we kind of lose some of the there. And then it comes down, hits a little bit on there. So that's as far as we're going to go with that. Let's keep moving. We're going to work our way over. We're going to start right here, work our way across. Whoops, I didn't get the area right above his head. There's so many little things going on. It is really easy to kind of overlook areas. And that's why I'd rather have paint in there without it being something specific than I would have it be an area I just didn't get to. So we've got a little bit of a front. Every now and then I'm backing up just so you guys can't see me, but because I have to see this thing a little bit from a distance. Okay. So again, we're going to move over in here. We got this area up in there, very light, Naples white, probably a little bit of a yellow thrown into that white. And we're going to start right corner, and there's the light, and a little bit more ochre into it, and we'll get a little bit, it's lighting, a little bit of architectural detail. Okay, step back, looks okay. A little bit more light here. We got that light right there. Good. Okay. Keep moving across. So we're going to hit the bottles now. And I'm going to take that same white and yellow with a nice chisel number 8. And I'm going to do the top of that bottle, top of that bottle, a little bit of the cap. a little down, little sneak, a little light down here and on the side of the label. And you can almost make them feel like bottles if you play your cards right and you hit without doing a lot of work on them. That's literally what we're trying to do. Trying to make it feel like a bottle without doing all the rendering that it takes. So we almost have a bottle there, right? Let's go to the other bottle, the one to the left of it. It's right almost in the center. It's right about here, right below the light. Get a little light there, a little light in the center of it, a little light on the center of the bottle, around the label, over here. And get a little light on the top of the label. I mean, on the top of the bottle, right about the same level as all these. So we hit a little ding right there. Then the bottle behind it is lit really light, and it really helps define that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in right here with bright and a strong bright down the side. And right there, a little bit right here. Whoops, a little bit too thick and clumsy, but that's the way it goes. This isn't a rendering, so if it's a little thick and clumsy, it's part of the, we write that off to technique. Or as many of my students say, I meant it to look like that. I didn't. So there we have a feeling of a bunch of bottles. Okay, they're not as refined as I would love to make them, because I can see a lot more I could put in down in here, right there, right on the center of that. That helps it. That makes it feel a little bit more defined. So let's go over to the next group of bottles right there, and they're really bleached out. Oh, there's a light. This big, beautiful light. So white, maples, and yellow. It's very light. Don't want to go to white, but it's right here. So we're going to kind of figure it out, right? So we're going to say, let's take the back of this and let's draw it. It's there. But there. So let's smash that. First thing I'm going to do, so I don't fight the color underneath, is wipe a little of that off. Just a little bit. Okay. Now, not all of it, but a little bit of it. Get rid of some of that turf that's on there too. Okay. So let's put the light in. About there. There. That's about the right color. I probably painted it a little too low. I don't care. Actually, I do care. Okay. It looks okay. Light. Now we have some little flickers of light in the background. Almost the same color. One of which looks like it's about here. And then we get a few feeling of lights on bottles back. Whoops. Pulled some dirt into that. Trying not to, but if I do, we call that technique. Top of the bottle on the far right. A little bit of a ding of light right here. And that light is probably bouncing around from here and here. And so we're getting, as I step back, I'm getting the activity kind of that I want. I always use that kind of, because I never know if it's exactly what I want. And I can tell you that at a later time. Label on a bottle. Label on another bottle. Label on another bottle. Finally on this bottle. Okay, so we have to add lighter lights to those bottles. Same color as the light. So just like I said, where I took the a lot of the shadows they unified. Sometimes the lights are going to unify, and that's what we're doing here. We're designing that light coming right down and obliterating that bottle. It's also illuminating the side of this bottle quite a bit. A little bit right there, a little bit on the side of this, on the, before it gets to the neck, a little on the other side, not as much. I don't know what that spot, that's probably where I put my finger and I didn't want it. Let's get rid of it. Okay. A little bit more amber color, so it isn't quite as light, because I can see it up in this bottle. And it goes up on the neck. And then we get some other lights back in there. So we're starting to get the feeling of that group of bottles. All right. That's about, I don't know how much further I'm going to have the opportunity. I can see that I need to add a little bit more information with just a sliver of that edge, a little bit of a edge here, a little bit of light up here, a little light right there, there, and a little bit more light coming down. Just a little, that's too much, but I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, we're going to leave that pretty much where it's at right now. I'm going to actually pick up a liner for a second, believe it or not, at this point. I'm looking at my time. I'm about 40 minutes into it. Not sure that's good or bad. Once again, I don't know. I feel like it's coming along time-wise okay. But we're going to put some little dings and a little bit of linear. This comes up right at this point. I don't want to get too picky. I want to keep it loose enough. If I get too picky, it's going to kind of ruin the whole thing, but need a little bit of accuracy up in here. Okay. Keep putting my finger down. Every time I put my finger down, I mess up. Let's go back. This is a rosemary. It's a number 6. So I've got an 8 and I got a 6. Now, what I'm going to use a 6 for is I'm going to amplify some of those midtones that, for example, right here. And a little bit more of that right. A little lighter. There. There's, again, nice chisel strokes. They'll do the job for us. So now we got to move down into this. And I probably need some more darks. I can feel it. Fingers, hand. So that comes dark right in there. A little bit more there. There. These are the handles of the 3 taps. There's a little bit of detail, not a lot, and I can do it with a liner. A little bit more of that. Oh, just want activity. Probably, I don't want to fuss it too much though. Okay, don't want to fuss too much. Probably went a little too far as it is. We're going to get the label on this bottle, which is right about here. Nice chisel stroke. This number 8, beautiful. These really excellent rosemaries really give you this really beautiful chisel type stroke. There. I'm not really sure what this is here. Hey, sometimes when you don't know what it is, you just have to paint the feel of it. And this light is also affecting that area right there. And it's laid in 2 areas. Number 1 goes around his head. So let's kind of, that's, now we want to soften that edge. Okay, now that's the glow of the light. Now we're going to put the light in. White, yellow, Naples, and we need some medium because I'm painting on 2 other layers of paint. But we want that to sit on top like that. You see how it just sits on there really nice? That adds the impact of the light. So now we have the light and a little feeling of glow around it, which is kind of what I was after. A little bit, go back to the more of the ochre light, and we'll get that light and one over there. Just again, spotting this activity. As I stand back, it's shaping up. So I'm learning something in this, which is part of what you want to do in every painting you do, truthfully, you guys. You want to be able to come away from it, even if it didn't come out good, feeling like you actually learned something that you can take on to the next painting. Okay. There's some design and activity in that mirror. I'm not sure I'm going to get to it. I might not. But I do want to get a little bit of that, a little bit of what comes up from there. Dings in the corner. Okay, let's leave that alone and not dwell on that. This is real active in here. The bottles have a lot of little chiseled pieces of light happening, little kind of sparkles. Now, the one label that I hit in the one area actually goes behind and comes out on this side. And then we get a little dings of light on a bottle back in here, a little bit of the top of that bottle. That's way too light, but at this point, beggars can't be choosers. Love that line, huh? It's like, oh man, I wish it was like this. I wish I didn't do that. I wish, but you know what? You did. And so hopefully make it work. I'm going to rest, do a little bit of, see, this comes down, hits right there. We get a little sparkle of light and a little bit on the edges, right about there. We get another one. Up there, we get another one. Different kinds of strokes. That's another thing I haven't mentioned, but different kinds of strokes will add some unique characteristics to your painting. So everything you do isn't the same stroke over and over and over again, which brings to mind one of my reasons for choosing this is I don't want to be redundant on these Friday demos. So I don't want to paint the same landscape over and over, the same seascape or the same type of figure. I kind of want to use them to hopefully give you guys some information as to how you can handle different types of things, but also I'm teaching myself. So every time you guys paint, besides doing a painting, you're teaching yourself something. Keep that in mind. Whether it comes out great or whether it comes out okay, you're teaching yourself something. Keep that in mind. Very important. At least I think it's very important. That we all, as we continue our journey of how to make better art, we're all pushing ourselves a little bit. There's times you're going to push yourself, then there's times you're not going to want to. And you know, I can talk a little bit about that regarding a lot of times when I finish a painting, if I still have some energy, a lot of times I will, in the studio, I'll try something. I'll do a little study of something, try something. Or if I do a couple of paintings that are really taxing, there's just a lot of stuff going on, then all of a sudden I may choose to do something so I can keep painting, but that is not as demanding and is not going to be as draining. It keeps you going. Just nice little chisel stroke. Use the corner, use whatever you can. Don't feel It has to be, if it's perfectly round, don't do it perfectly round, chisel it out. A lot of activity right here. I don't even know what it is. There's a lot of little lights happening. There's a lot of stuff. One of the fun things about these barroom paintings is exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of little stuff going on, and you don't always know what everything. I mean, if you're there, you're painting from life. It's one of the advantages, obviously, of painting from life. You know what you're painting exactly. A lot of times you paint from reference, and you're not quite sure. You're not quite sure if that's 100% correct or not. So we're kind of moving along, trying to kind of keep everything in check, so everything is relatively finished to the same degree at the end of the painting. Um, once again, that's my goal. That's my personal goal, is to make everything feel like it's complete. So it's complete, as I like to refer to a lot of times when I teach quick studies, you're making a complete statement. It may not be refined, but it feels complete.
Mitchell was saying, as in life, we learn from our mistakes, and mistakes are often some of the best marks on the painting.
Well, I agree with everything you just said, Mitchell, except for one word in there, often. They're not often, they're sometimes. And I'm speaking from personal experience, so sometimes you learn. I used to have I had a teacher who I quote a lot, Don Putman, who used to say, some of the best stuff in his painting are the areas that are wrong. And I know what he means by that. Specifically, you learn what you can get by with. That maybe is another nice way of putting it. I can get by with just doing this. I don't have to do everything. Now, if I wanted this to be a super realistic type painting, I still might approach it somewhat this way, just a slower pace. And that's one of the things that I always like to say is, I work this fast when I demonstrate. I don't work this fast when I'm just alone in my studio painting. Occasionally, I will try something like that, but generally speaking, I'm indicating lettering here. And when you do lettering, I don't want it to read. If I made that read, then all of a sudden, everything else should read a lot cleaner. So I just want it to feel kind of correct. So I get the activity of it, so to speak. And the top of this one, the top of this one. So we got those three. They have there's a light kind of streaming down the middle of them right about here. So let's do it with my liner. 1, 2, 3. What that does is it makes it a complete element. We've got to get into this guy for a little bit, and then I can go back and fill in the other areas. We got about 35 minutes maybe to get this all done. So I'm moving fast, pretty fast for me into this painting. Moving into areas, we're going to try and get a little architectural detail there. There, let's pull it out. And up here. And get a little bit back here. Just so it has some information there right by. So it feels like there's architectural detail. Now we got to get this guy's face in, because this is probably the most of a figure that we see, is this guy's face. And I'm gonna make him more interesting, hopefully. No offense, buddy. Show what I mean by make them more interesting. I'm going to put a little goatee on them or something. Eye sockets. I don't know why the heck I just left those out, but they got to be darker. They're not as dark as the hair. And this one goes up a little bit more. I drew it in there wrong. And then down around his cheek and around the wing of the nostril. A little bit down as his face is heading down. So it's starting to feel structural. Good. That's what I want. Structural meaning that it feels like this form. A little bit back in the ear. I always warm the ear up out of habit. Done it since art school, still do it to this day. So I throw a little bit more burnt sienna into that color. Say with the cheekbone, a little bit more. Give them a little more character. Let's do the light side in 2 stages. Ochre, a little red, too much red, a little more ochre. And we're going to give it a shot and see how this looks. Too light, too fast. I may want to end up there, but I don't want to start out there. So I just darkened it a little bit. Let's try it again. Still a little too light for my taste. Little structure, cheekbone, little cheekbone structure. We're going to pronounce that a little bit more with a little more light, but I wanted to start it with this. I never like to start as light as I'm going to end up. So what are we going to do with it? We're going to lighten it by adding a little yellow and white. And let's add a light plane right about in there. Comes down, hits above his eye socket. Right about there. I just stepped back and it worked. It didn't work because I stepped back. When I stepped back, I noticed that it was about where I wanted it cut value-wise and color-wise. It's not too far off my color. So we're getting a little bit of, give them a little bit of life here, okay? A little bit, maybe more right above that eye socket. Yeah, a little bit there. Maybe move it over a little here. Now, he's getting a little of a different color on the other side of his face. So I decided I want to make that other color a little cooler. Just because something I like to do. So I'm going to try this. It may not work. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to a flesh tone. Okay, let's leave it. I'm not sure I like it. I do want to get a little bit of a beard or a mustache in on him. So we'll put a dark red. Whoa, look at that guy. It's a handlebar, huh? Didn't want it. Let's give him a goatee. That feels better. A little bit more structure right here. Oops. Still too cold and dark. Let's take that background, chop that up. I don't know if I like the blue. I don't know. I'll change it if I feel I need to. Change it to more of just a light flesh tone, like on the right side. In fact, I think I might do that anyway. Now that I'm just looking at what I'm going to do with this shirt, I'm going to add a lot of light here because of these lights, the top of the shirt. And then as it drapes down into the shirt, Okay, take that background color, chisel it in, give them a little bit more of a sideburn maybe. Yeah, now I'm gonna make that a light color, much this, mainly because I see the light on his shirt. And so I'm gonna warm that back up. Pretty easy to do. Sometimes I like to let little flickers of that color come through. And finally, make it light. I don't want it to be quite as light as the other side, but I want a little bit there. Definitely, we want to make this light here feel like it's affecting his hair, his ear, the top of his shirt, and that may be a shirt on the other side now that I look at it. It's coming from about here. Yeah, I think it is. And there's his hand. There's a little bit of light sneaking back here. Now that I see it, if I look very carefully, I can find, depends upon how much information you really want to put into this. Let's get his hand in there. That is his shirt, by the way, now that I see it. So I think I made a good call there. That is his shirt. Let's give the right kind of look to that foam. And picking up little dings of light that I'm beginning to see here and there. We begin to give the glass a little form. And his hand has got some nice, bright, warm light hitting right down on it, right there. Back warmed it up a little bit, back on his knuckle. And then it fades away, and then his hand, part of the palm back in here, starts to get a nice little piece of light. And then back by his little finger. Okay, so I gotta knock some of these areas down. They're too light. Remember what I said about why you're better to go a little darker everywhere? I did, with the exception of a few spots. And those few spots are coming back to haunt me. So, there's a little piece of a bottle top sticking up there. And there. And this is what, a 6? Yeah, this is a 6. Rosemary 6. And we're going to use it. I don't want that. This is what happens when you start laying your fingers down. I'm going to use a yardstick as a maul stick. I'm going to lay it right here just so I don't put my fingers down. That's the main reason. So we're going to start to pick up a little bit of the edge. That edge. And that edge. That edge. And just down about in here. Comes down right about here. A little bit of light in the middle. Little pieces of light activity back behind. Edges. You can define them. If you don't have time, leave them alone. Now I want to make sure I've got enough dark, which I don't. That's why you see me come in here with this. Kept this brush handy. Good thing. So again, taking this, it's pretty light. So I'm going to use more of a yellow ochre at first as an underpainting right in the middle. There. Want to hit this one more time so it stands out. Maybe a little couple of dings right down in here. And on this side, a little bit. Okay, I have it. I made that one way too wide, and that's pretty easy. You just take my blue and brown, the dark, and chisel it back on this side mainly. So you just draw it. There, that's better. That's literally all it needed. Now we'll do the little top notch on it, and that's pretty much the white yellow kind of that I'm using. White, Naples, and yellow with some medium in it. And we'll hit the top, the center, and the base. The top, starting picking up dirty paint. The top, the center, and the base. Okay, so now we've got those two in there. Got that. A little bit of light tickling right along the top here. And getting a nice chisel edge. So what I'm doing is I'm getting a nice chisel edge on the brush so I can just lay my brush down and create the top of that glass. I can create a little bit of feeling right in here. Here, and I'm just letting the paint mix because I don't want it to be that white. So we're getting the activity kind of that I want. I'm going to go down to the bottom. Let's take my big brush again, this brush, blue and the brown together. Let's bring it up. Now I want to I got to get the hands done too. Just look at my time. I got about 15 to 20, depending on whether I go a little over. Let's finish this glass off. Get a little of the top of that glass in on the right. Ding here and there. I made it a little bit on the blue side. The glass he's filling. Let's get the foam part in. It's going to sit about in here. And then the white side of it is going to go almost a white and yellow again. So it's going to be about in here. And then it's got a lot of light right on the very top because the light is hitting it right there. All right. A little bit of the rim of the glass right about there. Light on his thumb. All right, let's get those hands in. I can't dwell on those. So flesh tone, darker hand, lighter hand, darker hand. Let's see what it looks like. That's my first guess. I'm pretty close. Probably a lot more on the yellow side, but not too far off. One, two. Upper hand. If I just take that same color and cool it down, I'm going to hit the darks between the fingers. Okay, so we hit the darks between the fingers there. Now, I want to paint the shadow on this hand. So same color, I just mix a little bit more umber into a little, cool it down a little bit, and test. Feels pretty good. Probably it could be cooler, but basically it's pretty good. Just realized I might be blocking with this. And a little bit of a dark on this finger that wraps up behind the glass. You know, that for as indicative as that is actually working better than I thought. Now a little bit more light on the very top of that hand. So I just took the same color, I just added maples into it. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit a little bit on this finger right there, and then a lot more maples in the color, and we're going to hit the top of that finger as it goes up, and maybe mixing a little of that, it will hit the back of this hand, just a little bit lighter. Okay, and that's all we're going to do with that. Just don't have time to do anymore. So go back to the maples, the white, very light, but not quite, with a little bit of the flesh tone mixed in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint those fingers one at a time. That one. We're painting the surfaces because we painted the indentations in between. So now it's just a matter of painting the surface of those fingers. Try to give a little bit of a bounce up where the knuckles are. That's it. That's all we're going to do on that. I just don't have time for any more. I'd love to be able to go back and do a little bit more rendering. I think I might on the guy's face, a little bit of the blue and the brown together to emphasize, since I put such a dark mustache on him, I might go back and emphasize a little bit more dark. That's way too dark, but that's much darker than I wanted. So we just go back and lighten it up a little bit. Boy, I'm messing it up, huh? Let's get the handle in between, which is this. Now I'm going to need to finish this stuff off, this, and that's probably all we're going to have time to do. So I was hoping I could actually go back into it and do a few things, but time-wise, it doesn't look like I might have 15 minutes the most.
Complicated.
Yeah, it's very complicated, but you know what? It was a nice, I learned a lot. You know what I learned? What I can get by without. And that's valuable. That's actually a valuable lesson. What do you not need to make the piece work? Because very often when anyone, myself, anyone works from photography, they want to emulate the photograph. So if the photograph has a lot of stuff going on in it, you want to have all that same stuff, when in essence, maybe it's not really necessary. Maybe you can get by with fewer things and make a more provocative image with less work. So I need to go in and I need to finish off these little areas, the little round, and that's going to be white with, it's going to probably be the whitest white in the painting. It almost goes cool. It's like it's got a little bit of a fluorescent characteristic. So I actually took white and added just a hint of ultramarine to it, and we're going to give it a shot. First thing I'm going to try is this one. And there's lettering that comes across, and another that goes down, and then we're going to do the next one, and that's Guinness. I know it's kind of scary that I can recognize that Guinness label, huh?
Chris said for the full effect, you should be drinking your Guinness.
And you know what? When I'm done, I think I just might. Now we got that one that's almost pure white, but it's got a little bit of a cool cast. And you chisel it. Don't try and paint this perfect circle, because all of a sudden it's going to stand out, because the rest of your painting is much more indicative. And the other one gets almost a little yellow characteristic to it. So I just throw a little Naples into the same color. As Mitchell said, sometimes some of these clumsy strokes you make really add some interest, as long as you keep that as part of your intent. I should go back to that word. If you keep that as part of your intent, that you're not trying to make everything 100% the way it looks. You just want it to feel right. Now, if these are wrong, I just go back and monkey around with them. Monkey around, that's a technical term. Where the hell did that ever come from? I think my folks used to use that. Monkey around. That's really derogatory towards apes.
We're having fun. So it's not...
Okay, good. So let's get some of the bigger empty stuff going on. I want to get this going. We got to get that. That didn't help there. Burnt sienna and a little bit of the asphaltum, and let's see what this starts out like. I could probably throw more red into it if I wanted to also. But let's get it in here. I'm going to bring a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit more raw sienna into it. So I'm starting to liven it up a little bit. No, not enough. Let's try it again. Okay, that's a little bit better. So that gets darker up there. So what do? You throw some more asphaltum into it. And we'll let it kind of blend and disappear. I want to keep this kind of dark. And so I play with the light part of it. Got just about 10 minutes. So we're gonna let's just get rid of it. We'll just put the lights in on top. I was trying to save where I was going to put the lights, but you know what? You can mess it up sometimes by doing that. So let's just get the overall dark going. Let me stand back. It's too bright. So I threw more of the asphaltum into it, particularly up in here, maybe right in here with a little bit, so it didn't look so bright. And pop those little lights in. There's a real beautiful glow, almost ochre with a little bit of red. Well, keep saying a little bit. Sometimes I forget how bright just a little bit is. Okay, where is that? Right behind his head, so it's right about here. So we're going to go there, put more ochre into it. It's not standing out enough. Put more ochre into it. Okay, now smear it around a little bit, make some fun strokes, because it's just kind of a glow. Okay, that's good. And little lights. The white, the yellow, and the Naples, and the medium, because I'm painting on layers of paint right now. Okay, so we're going to put one right there, Where's it line up? Right here. There. And a little bit duller, but still in there. Kind of off the page. Let's put it right about here. Okay. Probably have it not quite right, but that's what we're going to live with. I want to get a little bit of a pull. Didn't want to go. Okay. Now let's get this area done. Very similar, dark, warm. So I can take asphaltum and bring a little bit of burnt sienna into it. And we're going to start with this one stroke. It comes up, goes behind this glass, and a little bit below this glass. Okay. Oh, it's a tray. I got it. It's a tray. So we got to make this one glass come down in front of it a little bit more. And this too. We're almost there. We're almost at the point where I can go, it's kind of done. Nice, wonderful chisel strokes that this brush is allowing me to make. And these are all part of his tray where it looks like he's got all kinds of little goodies up in here. I'm gonna do one last thing. So we're just about there, man. Almost timed this right. And I think probably didn't shock anybody else as much as it did me. I think one of the things that saved me in this is that I didn't try to overdo anything. And what I tried to do, I don't like this guy's head specifically, and I think I could really improve upon that. I think I can chisel out some more lights and a little bit more of a light edge, and a little bit more light maybe on the hair. But one of the things that saved me is, like I said, I didn't try to overdo anything. I kept with the concept that I was going to keep it free, probably understated. And just put my time and interest into the areas. I know what I'm going to do right at the end here, just in case you guys are wondering. Okay, one of the things that I was going to do right at the end, do a little, almost, for lack of a better word, let's call it drawing. Let's put a little bit of a filigree, some of this stuff going on. Let's bring it down, around. Whether this ends up right or wrong doesn't matter. I just want the feeling of what all this kind of fun stuff in the mirror. A little darker. A little bit lighter. Let's go down that way. That way. A little floral. A little busyness. And if that bothered me and it ends up feeling like it stands out too much, what I will do is I will just take negatives, meaning the blue and the brown, which is the black of that mirror, is the reflection, and just kind of chisel and make it feel more like it's not picked at so much. most of the other stuff, I'm not sure I like that, by the way. I think I'm gonna get rid of it. You know why? Too much activity on the edge of the page. And this is one of the problems when you paint, again, from reference, and you want to be true to your reference. All of a sudden, you begin to realize that design-wise, it probably didn't work that well. So why not do what I just did and just eliminate it? I like it better that way, with that just that wonderful glow of light. If I want to amplify the feeling of that glow, I can take a little bit more of a red color and move it into these areas. And what you do is you create the feeling of that glow more, kind of like it comes into his hair like that. And that's that kind of, I was trying to do it back where the bottles are. It's actually working okay. So that's kind of what we end up with in this amount of time. And it was fun. And I'm sure there's little areas I'm going to look at and go, why the heck did I do that? I can see this needs a little bit of more information, little lights. So it feels like something. Little lights down here. You don't have to have them all in there. You just have to have enough so it begins to feel complete. And that's all we're striving for, is the feeling of completion. And a lot of what you want is things that are not over-defined, but it feels correct. And so that's the whole thing. Now, truthfully, what I might do is go over this with one more layer of dark, and just because sometimes the brush strokes stand out too much. But if there are people that like the brush, that kind of brush marks, I do at times, and I might on this, but I haven't had the chance to really feel it out and see how I feel about it. But as I stand back, basically, it works. It feels pretty good. I can see a lot of little areas that I could fuss in, but I'm not going to, even though I'm doing it as we speak. So hopefully what you guys got out of this is a little bit of an idea of how to handle a complex interior scene with figures in it, and understate the whole thing and begin to, it's more or less the process of how to do this, I guess, is really what I'm getting at. There is a process. There's a process to all forms of painting, by the way. It's never just totally intuitive. Even though one may think it is, anybody that's painted before is using some of that kind of knowledge that they've used before. And in that regard, it's not just trusting yourself. It's like using a lot of the intuition that you started with. Anyway, there you have it. Really, a lot of the darks are already sucked into the painting, so it really is probably hard to read. But that's it. I hope you guys have a good weekend. I'm going to try and do the same. If I can ever get this damn painting out of my head, but there's so much going on. And I kind of like parts of it. And then there's other, I love that part. I think and that part works really well. This is okay. This figure works pretty good. I'm still not happy with that guy. And I don't know what I'll do to make myself happy, but I'm blaming him because my whole goal was to make it more interesting than he is. I hope this guy is not watching. In any event, happy painting, everyone. Thank you.